welcome everybody. This is our first ever Quality Talks podcast live event. Yeah, Eamon. Yes, Eamon. Exactly that. So this has been something that we've been looking to, we launched the podcast, in May last year, I think it was. And never did I think that we'd be sat here doing a live event with a lovely audience. And everybody's sitting there going, what's the podcast? I've never even listened to it. Actually, hands up, who has listened to the podcast? Well, a few people. So that's great. So we're going to get some more followers now, hopefully. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. But thank you everybody for coming. Thank you to Adrian and Exalto Consulting for sponsoring and getting this lovely venue set up, and all the work that's gone into that. So thank you for doing that. Really appreciate it. This show really is all about the future of leadership in tech. So leadership is ever evolving, and we thought it'd be really cool to bring some experience to the sofas, and just have a discussion around what leadership and how it's evolved over the years, but what more importantly does it look like in the future. So before we do that though, I'm going to hand over to James to just do a bit of an introduction to Exalto, if that's okay, who are our sponsors this evening. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah, thanks, Stu. It's great to see quite a few familiar faces and some new ones as well. Just very quickly, if you don't know Exalto Consulting, where have you been for the last 3 years?
Exactly.
So we essentially do three things. We do recruitment, we do performance coaching, and consultancy services, all within the technology sector. And we just try and help people technology leaders build high-performing teams, basically. So, yeah, thanks, Stu.
No, thank you guys.
Yeah.
Because if it wasn't for you guys, we will be sat here right now. So, no, I'll still be sat in my little garden studio doing these things online with my Lego set behind me. So welcome to our lovely guests. So we've got Rachael Morgan and we've got Cleveland Henry. How are you both? All right. Warming up. You've had a few beers. You've had some food. Well, the night's young.
You wait.
Yeah. You're going to watch the light show. So
Inside joke
that we were talking about beforehand. So I'm going to hand over. Rachael, would you like to just introduce yourself to the audience, please?
Sure. So I'm Rachael. I most recently have been working in Flutter as a head of technology in data. Previously, I worked in the NHS and I worked in Sky Bet. And I am just about to move on to my next very exciting opportunity. And I'm very excited about the discussion today because honestly, I think that the role of leadership and how we as leaders grow and support our teams in this very changeable world is really, really interesting. So thank you.
Thank you for being here. Cleveland.
I'm Cleveland. I'm now the Chief Operating Officer. Ooh, that sounds posh, doesn't it? Of Optum UK. I don't know if it's one of those where when you put your hand up or someone asks who's a volunteer and everybody steps back. But so I'm the coup of Optum UK. Usually everybody knows us as EMIS Health. And it's an absolute privilege to be in that position and to work for a company that, makes me get up out of bed and feel valued because we're doing something around health. And for me, that's what's key. I've been in leadership and management for a long time, actually longer than some people are in age in here. So when he said experience, what he meant was old. And I've worked for organisations, and ex-colleagues are in here for the likes of NHS Digital, Lloyds Banking Group, we could name Mercedes-Benz. I always love mentioning that one. A whole host of companies. But I've been in management and leadership for a very long time. I look forward to these conversations because it's really changed and I think it's continuing to evolve. It's quite exciting. That's me.
Yeah, nice. Mercedes-Benz.
I've got to mention that one. Yeah, I was only there for 18 months, but hey.
You could have been there for 18 minutes and it would still be up there.
Yeah, totally. They took me to the F1 as well, so you know what.
Check him out. So it's great to have you both join us, and you've both mentioned it there about like leadership and how it's evolved, and you know how you've grown into those roles over the years and stuff like that. And I'd like to just kick us off with, what does that look like over the span of your careers so far? So for example, Rachel, how did you get into leadership initially, and what does that sort of journey look like for you?
So I had the most amazing manager when I was in the NHS. She was absolutely inspirational, and she pushed me into opportunities that I never thought I would be any good at, but she really trusted me. And at the point where I was going from being an individual contributor to being interested in management, she said, Rach, it's great having you on the team. Don't take this the wrong way, but I think now is the time for you to go out into the Leeds tech scene and find your next business. Go out, go and work for a business that's going to stretch you. I really think that, you know, now is the time for you. And at the time, I was like, oh my gosh, does that mean that you don't want me? But she is the single most inspirational leader that I have worked for. And that conversation totally changed the trajectory of my career, because I then moved into Sky Bet, as was. And from that point, I moved into various different roles in technology, but just being given that trust and then also that push was a really big moment in my career. And I think that that's a real theme for me. It's a lot about working with, and I suppose being lucky enough to have some absolutely amazing mentors and bosses and sponsors. I mean, my career is completely littered with these fabulous people. And I think for me, that's really key to how I lead and manage. I try and look around and I try and think, how do I support other people? So I don't actually know whether I've answered your question, but I hope that it's gone somewhere.
It absolutely did. Yeah. And I think I mean, we're going to come on to kind of like maybe inspiring moments a bit later, but it sounds like that was almost like a light bulb moment for you of like, oh, okay, maybe this is something I can do. It's always interesting though, isn't it? When somebody says, I'm not trying to get rid of you, but have you thought about going over there? It's always an interesting one, isn't it? Because that's happened to me in the past as well. It's like people think, oh, you know, you've got the skill set, you've got the, you know, and you just, and I'm like, what's the matter with me? Why are you trying to ditch me over there? Say, well, how about yourself?
Well, do you know what? And just to add on to that, that's leadership personified, isn't it? Because that's what leaders do.
Yeah.
And interestingly, if I look at my start, so I finished studying, and the next day got a job. So obviously and I joined what you now call today a startup. Back in my days, we didn't even call, you know, just a small new company, 17 people, and owner owned by three absolutely amazing guys. One of them, two of them were GPs and clinicians, and one of them was a businessman. And actually, interestingly, he had a number of failed businesses, and then this was the one that he took on. So he took me, you know, green, wet behind the ears, joined this very small company, staff number 17, you know, come in, learn how to code, learn how to run a support operation, learn how to put computers together, learn how to, well, it's such a small company, you know, learn how to clean the windows, you know, whatever it was you did, everybody did everything. And Tony, bless his soul, right, was the person that basically took me under his wings and just taught me everything. Not just about, there was other people that were, you know, technical, where we were computerizing things then, we weren't digital. You know, it's that long ago. But he wanted to not just get me into the world of work, but actually teach me about business. And after working for him for about 18 months, he said to me, and I'm really young at this point, about 7, and he said to me, I did, mate, you should have seen it. Went through all the flat tops, all the, you know, anyway. And he basically took me under his wing and he said, you know what, Cleveland, I think you've got what it's going to be to lead people, to be a manager. I was literally 20 years old. And he, again, taught me everything I knew. about managing people. He started by helping me recruit people. One of the people I recruited is still my best friend today. And that's, should I say how long ago it is? Yeah. Is that a bit? Yeah. What year were in now, 2025? That was 33 years ago. So, you know, as I said, right, it's that thing, that was a leader. And it is about seeing what you see in individuals and then helping someone to grow. That was my thing. And then, you know, when I went through my phases, it was interesting, right? Worked for the company for about 5 years, and he said to me, "Look, Clive, you're doing really well. You've always got a home here, but I think you should go and do this somewhere else." And I was, you know, after a weekend of like, he hates me. I came back and I thought, actually, you know what? But what allowed me to go away was that safety net. He said to me, if it don't work, come home. But you know what I mean? And there you go. I say I never went back. The interesting thing is the company I now work for, although they're now acquired, is that same company I started my career in. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Isn't it just?
That's amazing.
Absolutely.
Pay me a bit more now, but hey.
Well, I would hope so. I mean, even on inflation alone. Do you know what I mean?
Totally.
Yeah, I think I think that's really interesting, and sometimes that's the sort of encouragement, and like you mentioned there about safety net. And the first role I ever had, I was at the company for 10 years, and probably half of that was in some sort of leadership role, and that was the first company I'd ever worked in. And I remember. I remember being pulled into my director's office one day, and I thought, oh, nobody ever went in the director's office back then. It was like, if you only went in if you were in trouble.
Yeah.
So I come back to my desk after lunch, and I had a Post-it note stuck to my screen saying, can you go into Graham's office? That's the director. And I was like, shall I bring my coat? So I thought literally that was it. So I walked into the office, and he sat there behind his desk, closed the door. I was like, oh, Christ, what's going on here? Take a seat. I sat down, and I must have only been, I mean, I started there when I was 18. So I was probably about
A long time ago.
long time ago, right? So I must have been like 23 or some sort of, so I wasn't much older than what you were. And I was like so nervous. And he was like, so just want to have a chat about, you know, your future here. And I was like, oh, Christ, it's going really bad now. It's like, how would you like to step into a management role? I mean, I didn't even know how I reacted, but afterwards, when I spoke to him a couple of days later, he went, you look so pale. And then all of a sudden, this colour just flowed back into your face. But you said nothing. Because I didn't know what to say. I was like, because I didn't think I was ready. And it was just that moment of like, somebody believing in you that could see something that maybe you couldn't, that has basically triggered my career to be where it is today. And like, you know, spin forward a number of more years, like you say, and you know, pretty much every single role I've been in has been in a leadership role since. Different types of leadership. My own personal view on leadership has changed massively as well, you know, and you know, we'll get into that a little bit more, I'm sure. But
it's interesting listening to you guys on that as well. That you all said that somebody kind of approached you and said, look, you've got the skills to be a manager, or, you know, they've seen something in you. And I had a similar experience as well. And it's something that you hear a lot from people who are in leadership positions now. Kind of what, in your opinions, do you think that people are seeing in that young person? You know, what are the traits?
Oh, such a good question.
Let you answer it first. Then I can just follow on.
So I won't go into the mistake I made, but I made a mistake at an airport that basically meant that I missed a flight. But that's not the point of the story. This was well known in the company, quite embarrassing. But I got back in contact with somebody that helped me out in that situation, and I started the message off with, "Hi, it's Rachel. I'm that person that missed that flight," and it was very embarrassing. The person sent me a message back saying, you should start your message with, "It's Rachel, a dedicated and committed head of technology." So I think dedication, it was something that people probably, hopefully, picked up from the way that I was approaching work, I was, and I hope I still am, really committed to the idea of learning, trying to do my best, but accepting the fact that I'm still growing, but really throwing myself into things as much as possible. And I hope that's the reason why that person said to me, Rach, just go for it. Because there I was, throwing myself in, trying my best, really trying to make a difference, and really, really wanting the opportunity and the responsibility of being a leader.
Right, how are you going to follow that? You should have gone first.
Could have built on it. It's interesting. What are the attributes that you see? What are the things? Something to me, I always say about attitude. You can teach a lot of things. You can learn from a book. You can go on a course, etc., etc. I think there's something that you can't really teach, and that's someone's attitude, and it's sort of innate in the type of people that they are. And I think you see. What I've always seen, and I hope people have seen in me, is that desire to learn, that desire to grow, that I want to do more. I actually feel like when I'm looking at individuals, and often it's not the loudest person in the room or whatever, but you see certain things in an individual, and you go, do you know what? There's something in there that can be built on. It's interesting, isn't it? I was just going to say, miserable buggers with really poor attitudes don't make leaders, but actually some of them do.
Generally in government, though.
Some of them get there, but in essence, the reality is about seeing. Sometimes I see individuals that you just see that they've got an aptitude where they want to learn, they want to grow, and you just tap into that and add something to it to give them the confidence to then go, because a lot of it is often about confidence, isn't it, as well?
It is, and I just want to pick up on something that Cleveland said there, and said you don't need to be the loudest voice in the room. And often it's not so much about the people that say the stuff, it's the people that don't. Just seeing what they're doing and how they're responding, and like you say about dedication, that doesn't mean you need to be like loud and the voice in the room. There's other ways you can show dedication, and it's for me, having people around you that see that, because you don't always see that. And I've been very fortunate enough to learn from a number of people that are very people focused leaders. So they're very good with people. They're very good at measuring people and looking at them going, I think you'd be good at X, and that's what I've very much mirrored my leadership style on. And for me, there is a big difference between that style of leadership and somebody that is a manager. And I want us to talk a bit about that, because I've had people that are very good at management, getting stuff done, but maybe not as good from the people side of things and relating to people and having that empathy and having that sort of ability to kind of pull the best out of people. They'll get the job done, and they get their people to get the job done, but maybe not in the same way as what we were just talking about there. So what are your thoughts on that, and in terms of the different styles of leadership, let's say?
It's always interesting, you look at managers and leaders and the rest of it, and believe me, in all my years, as you can imagine, those few decades, I've had some poor managers and leaders and seen, witnessed, and I actually love watching poor managers and leaders because it teaches you not what to do. So that's always great. But I've always looked at, when you look at managers, you look at management, and management's a skill, and it's a good step, and it's something that's really good. But actually, just managing and getting shit done, right? Is short-lived. You can beat someone into getting something done to produce a result, but there's no loyalty there. There's no longevity there. There's no respect there, and that's where I think the difference is. Not anyone. It does take a particular skill to manage. I've always felt it's not a huge skill to just get something done. If you want people to want to do things, if you all remember, right, the subjects we were best at were the ones you enjoyed doing. Simple as that. And the world of work for me is exactly the same. Which is why even now, when I see individuals that are in a world of their position, their speciality, etc., and they're not enjoying it, or it's not their thing. It's actually I think it's your obligation to support them, to let them see that maybe that's not your thing, but there will be something else, especially in our tech industry. I mean, look, if I've done all right, then anyone else can. So, so, that's really the difference. I've never seen any bad manager or bad leader last very long. They might get something in a short period of time. They have no respect of individuals, and all that sort of good stuff. So there's your few differences.
I've literally had somebody come in into a project, and their intro was, "I've been brought in because I can get shit done." I mean, that was almost like the first sentence that came out of their mouth, and it was kind of like, okay. I was like, what's next? Yeah, exactly. But to be fair, they did, but maybe not in the way that brought others along and actually engaged them and stuff like that. But Rachel, what are your thoughts?
Is so important. It's such an important thing as a leader to be aware of and to think about how you build that into your leadership style. Because, completely agree. I've watched people do amazing things, get stuff done, but destroy the relationships with their peers, with the team, the wider opportunity and influence they have in the organization. And that carries. I mean, I think things like LinkedIn and the wider communities that we're all part of, your reputation and the way that you treat people just filters. And so if you don't even care about the way that perhaps you're getting something done, thinking about actually the way that you do it will proliferate. And so respect as a leader is really, really important.
Can I just...
Yeah, go on.
What? So, not to put you on the spot.
Okay, but to put
I'm
me on
going
the spot.
to put you on the spot.
Fair enough.
That's what we do here. What does respect look like?
Oh, good point. I mean, I've got that song going around in my head.
There you go.
So that's,
After we get on the mic.
Yeah.
That's such a good song. I think it's trusting that the person has got not just their best interests at heart, that actually they're going to work with you as a unit, as a team, to enable the value to be delivered. So I think it's about being the kind of person that people can trust with good news and bad news, showing up consistently, being authentic, and it's kind of controversial at the moment, the idea of how authentic we are at work, but authentic in the context of work. And I think just being a bit genuine, really. Like, tech is difficult. It's not a to B journey. I mean, if anybody has got an A to B story of how you've delivered
Please
something,
come and join us.
please, definitely.
We'd love to hear.
But there are going to be bumps in the road, and how you deal with that as a leader, I think, makes or breaks the respect that you do or don't have with your team. That's my take.
Turning up consistently.
Yeah.
Yes, I've had some leaders in the past that you never knew what version you were going to get. And they needed a red and green light sort of indicator on their office door back in the day when there were office doors. Shall I step in there and ask the question or not? I don't know. Yeah, absolutely. So
we talk about people showing up, etc. And the judge, anyone can be authentic in a good time. It's when the shit hits the fan where you really see if someone is or isn't. If they've just, swallowed the latest textbook and they're making sure everything's said right and done right. But actually when the pressure kicks in, that's when you see if someone is really authentic. If it really is about the team or if it's really about them.
Yeah.
And that is that's quite an interesting one in behaviours and all. That's when you see, the good leaders versus the mediocre.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that as well.
Whose fault is it?
Yeah. Where does the blame go? Yeah, and who takes the fall for their team, or actually do they start playing playing the blame game. Yeah, I'm sure we've all seen that in different leadership styles over the years.
And I think that's a real clear indicator of how far you've come. We talk about culture and culture shift, and a lot of what we try and do these days is obviously encourage culture change and all this sort of stuff. And it's only when things go wrong that you really know how far we actually come on that journey. Because, like you say, people revert back to type, and we talk a lot in leadership about empowerment and autonomy and stuff like that. But empowerment and autonomy without the support means nothing.
Yeah.
So it's like, Cleveland, I empower you to go away and make a mistake. But if you make a mistake, you're on your own, mate. Yeah. Honestly, it doesn't work. Yeah. And I think that's like, it's.
That's a good point, Dad. So from your guys' kind of perspective with that, how do you try and create a culture where people can make mistakes and actually, be allowed to create that and create like an innovative kind of culture, inclusive culture?
Do you want to go first?
I think Cleveland should go first. What do you think? Do you think Cleveland goes first? Yeah. Go on, Cleveland.
So, let me think. Ask me the question again.
So I was asking really, like, as a leader, especially a senior leader, how do you kind of purposefully like craft a culture so that people can actually make mistakes?
It's a really interesting one, right? Because I think it's really important that people not just hear that they can mistake, but can see and feel it and know that they've done that. We talk about all this thing about being vulnerable and et cetera, et cetera. There is an element about, so for me, right, so from a leadership perspective, and I might even answer one of the questions that you're going to ask later, so I'll try and not too much. In my early days of being a leader or a manager, I had the belief, it was a long time ago, that I had to be the best. So, I had to be the best, and everybody below me was, slightly less better than me. And clearly, really, it worked all right for a while, or I felt it did. And then, when you look at how do you build a culture and stuff, and you learn through progression and time that actually being the best leader is being surrounded by people that are better than you. And everyone has their skills and weaknesses and strengths and the rest of it. Being able to really authentically demonstrate that every single person brings something different to the table. And therefore, when we collectively, experience a mistake, etc., it's all of us. It's not about, he or she. It's about all of us. So it's just, I don't know, it's really weird trying to describe these little things because all the time, and this is what, you youngsters, right, are going into leadership now, there's certain things you can read and learn, but all the time there's some things that are just a bit, they become sort of second nature. Yeah. They become second nature in your own friendships and relationships. Leadership ain't that special. It's not, I don't know, it's not a higher echelon of anything. It's just, just you and the things that you value and find, and you ensure that you.
I think leadership is a privilege.
Of it. Yeah, totally.
An absolute privilege.
Sometimes, though, I mean, in particular, like I've just been promoted to coup, did I mention? And it's really funny. It's really funny actually because throughout your career, there's always someone else that you can pass the questions, the answer to. It's like, oh yeah, I'll find out. What do you and now I sort of go and say, oh yeah, thanks for letting me know. I'll go and speak to. Oh shit, that's me. What am I?
It's a bit lonely, to be fair. That is.
Oh my god, yeah. So, yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah. So in a previous role, I was MD, and it's exactly the same thing. It's like when you first promoted to it, it's like people come and ask you all the questions. You're like, who am I going to ask? Right? Okay. It's It's
do you not just then go, what do you think?
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah,
that's exactly right.
How do you think you can solve this
How
problem?
would you solve it?
Well, here comes the coach.
Yeah. Great coaching, I'd say. Yeah.
I think that's why coaching was developed.
But to get out of giving answers.
To get out of giving answers at that level.
Yeah.
I think like they're very clever, very, very clever. And now we just make loads of money.
Pay loads of money to someone who asks you to answer the question that you've asked them.
It's manipulation.
I've had a coach and she was amazing, but there you go.
Be up for the coaches in the room.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, I'm a coach. You're a coach.
Yeah.
Everyone's
a coach. Sorry, Rachel, you were going to come in, I think, here.
No, I was just thinking. I think that in technology, there are things that you can do to protect your teams from actually deploying or releasing something that's critical to a system. And I'm really, really passionate about the fact that, it's probably like too into the tech, but your deployment processes and, how you build your systems protect your people. Because people are human, people make mistakes, people will delete whole schemas by accident. And
almost talking from experience.
Maybe. So just being aware of that and fire drilling things, I'm really in favor of practicing failure. And then when it happens, and if you feel yourself going, oh my gosh, I can't control my emotions here, I'm panicking, I don't want to bring that, taking a step back and going, cool, okay, right, thank you for letting me know, because that's pretty amazing. They've just told you that there is an issue and they flagged it to you. Wow, that's really awesome of them. But just taking a moment to just go, oh fuck. And I have definitely done that. Zoom is great for that. You can just go, thanks guys, right, give me a moment. That's natural. I think we care, don't we? And so if we care, we are going to feel some emotion when things go wrong.
And it's an interesting one, I think, as well. So, and I'd be interested to get your take on this, Cleveland, as well. Like levels within organisations, and obviously there's different cultures in different organisations as well. But in a previous role, when I was in reporting into board level, so group CEO level at a £1 billion turnover kind of company, actually in that environment was quite interesting because I didn't feel that it was that safe failure kind of environment when you first kind of stepped into it, whereas across the rest of the company, I felt that it was in there. But actually, in that actual environment, when you first stepped into it, I felt that it just wasn't that kind of place. And so I think it comes sometimes from where what comes from the top down within the organisation kind of sets the tone around that, if that makes sense.
You've got to feel it. Coming back to what you're saying, you've got to feel safe, right? And as if you're in a position of leadership and you're able to show and share your own failures, I think that's a great way to say it's okay.
Yeah.
Right. And to your point, sometimes you just need to click that Zoom button and go, oh.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Let's go. Let's go. Right. But also, just I got you.
Yeah.
What support do you need? Just the language we use is so important. And not sort of saying things like, so what are you going to do about that? It's like, okay, what support do you need? What can we do? And okay, we're asking the questions, but we're not doing it in a way that we're putting all the emphasis on that person. We're like, how do we get through this together? Right, and going from there.
It's always interesting when we talk about failures. There ain't such thing as a failure, isn't it? And it's just the lessons learned.
Only if you learn from it.
Well, you absolutely have to learn from it. I talked about Tony, the man that sort of discovered me, like I was a piece of rock. But, so, yeah, tell me about it. Yeah, tell me about it. But, and I think about Tony, one of the things I said, that he'd had a number of failed businesses before he launched a business that was really successful. And he once said to me that he would not have been successful if he had not failed previously.
Yeah.
And that is really is always really that has always struck me. And allowing failure, especially in our world where failing fast is good, but also failing and being transparent and open about it, because the worst thing is something goes wrong, something does something wrong, and nobody ever says anything about it. And then and you go, oh my gosh, what happened if? So there's always that thing for me around, look, being able to be, I've made mistakes, not many obviously, but yeah, too. But it's almost turning, look, and it's not all sweetness and light, right? But trying to turn a challenge, an issue, a problem, to turn it around into both a learning opportunity, but also making sure that we don't repeat and move from there. And you talk about feeling safe. That you can't make that up. You can't say it's all right to make a mistake, but the moment you do, you're going to hammer them.
Yeah, exactly.
So you've got to really get that balance right, but also not being, it's not all sweetness and light.
No, and that's the thing, right? And I think the key thing there is that people need to understand there are consequences to things going wrong, but we're all in it together, and I think that's the key thing.
Yeah.
And I think, like, if you have to tell somebody in a room that this is a psychologically safe space, chances are they probably don't feel that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm happy to tell you, it's probably not the thing that you need, right? So yeah. I just want to move on slightly in terms of, and coming back to kind of something you touched on earlier about your start into leadership. And I mentioned about inspiration. And you've both started talking about people that, discovered you. But I'm really keen to understand a bit more about, is there maybe not a single moment, but what would you say that if there's a moment in your career that was a bit sort of like inspirational or changed your direction or changed your mindset or just that light bulb moment went off?
Yes, definitely. So we had a failing program of work. I was the head of technology looking after the engineering and the test element of it. So I was still involved in this program of work. And then we had a change of people in the team. Somebody left and my boss turned around to me and said, do you want to like lead on this? And inside I was like, no, leave me alone. No, thank you. But I was like, okay, this is an amazing opportunity. I'm so scared, but I'm really excited about this. I'm going to go for it. And it was really interesting to experience the inside going, oh my goodness, no, thank you, please no. But then actually the overriding sensation of I'm going to go for it. I'm going to try. I'm going to give this I'm really going to go for it because it's really not working at the moment, and this is an awesome opportunity, and I'm going to grab it. And I remember exactly where I was. I remember I was in Dublin, and I remember what room it was in, and I just remember that feeling. Just that was really amazing because I got the opportunity to really put into practice a lot of the things that I'd been thinking about and wondering about, and actually just kind of, I suppose, walk the walk. So that for me was amazing. Such a good opportunity.
There's been loads in there. And obviously, because I'm older, right, there were candle moments, not exactly light bulbs at the time.
Okay, a candle. Yeah. Was it like gaslit?
Exactly. I can't ever pinpoint one, but I can pinpoint loads of them. I once worked for this woman. She was a Californian, really powerful, amazing, inspirational woman. It's called Terry Murphy. And I used to say, right, because the things she used to say were like little snippets. And remember back in the day when you used to get all these motivational posters, I used to go, they should be just Terryisms, because she used to just say things that made you go, yeah.
They're called memes nowadays.
Yeah, exactly. She used to just say things. I remember she asked me, she used to always push me out of my comfort zone. I remember once, young again, and having to present to the exec leadership team. I worked for a company called Business Objects at the time. They were French-American, massively on the stock market back in the day before .com and everything started going on, all these like paper millionaires being made and etc. And she used to always push me out my comfort zone. And I remember she asked me to do a presentation to the exec leadership team in a really glamorous place. And I was, talk about imposter syndrome. I was shitting myself. Literally, the moment where you go, right, this is the bit where I'm going to be found out. Everyone's going to realize that I've been fluffing it for all these years. And this is the moment, make the floor. Yeah. And she stood next to me just before I walked in and she said, when you look around that room, I know you're feeling really, really conscious at the moment. Just remember, every one of them wipes their own ass. And you know what? It took, as I went in, and that's... How did she know? And I thought, talk about creating a leveler.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And it was just And she used to come out with these little snippets whenever you sort of fear of something or wherever you. She just used to say these little things, and then you go, "Yeah, you're right. He does wipe his own ass. Yeah. You're no more special than me." And it was always these. For me, there's always sometimes the most simplest moments that I've been inspired by someone, and usually it's about inspiring belief, because everyone is talented in their own way, but a lot of us, even now, look, did I mention I'm a coup? Even now, we talk about being lonely, but even I have doubts in my own ability, my own, what am I doing here? And it's just those moments of really tiny, simplest moments of belief that make me go, actually, yeah, I'm all right. I can do that. So those have been all my little light bulbs. I could obviously walk through multiple projects and all these sort of stuff that went really well, that went mediocre, etc. But my inspirations, my light bulb moments have always been moments of inspiration, and they're often the most simplest things as well.
I love that. I mean, that's going to stick with me now. If I ever get up on stage, I'm going to look at everybody and go, "You all wipe your own ass."
Yeah.
It's an absolute leveler. Yeah, absolute leveler. For me, like when a number of years ago, I worked at EasyJet, and the culture was amazing. It was very startup-ish. Like it wasn't a startup, right? Stelios was still doing his thing, kind of thing. Back in, you never knew which side of the bed he was going to wake up on. I had some really great people around me, and I remember, I was in a test manager role, putting releases out on a reservation system and on a website at the same time for airlines wasn't an easy thing because it was so coupled together. And I used to take everything on my shoulders. It was like, if this release goes wrong, it's on me. If this does, it's just how I was at the time. So I was really committed to making sure nothing went wrong, and that was my downfall. And I remember one of the guys I worked with, he led the configuration management team. He turned around to me one release when he could see I was stressed. He took me to one side. He went, "Stu, do you know what? Dude, sometimes you just got to let things break, mate." And those of us in this room that are in software testing or anything like that, letting something break, kind of like, I can't do that. But it was the best advice he ever gave me. Because you can't take everything on your own shoulders. You can't expect to be the person that makes everything right. But that's what I was trying to do. That's what I was, and if I'd have carried on down that road and tried to shape my career around that, I'd be 6 feet under, I reckon, because I wouldn't have been able to take it. You've got to accept that things don't always go right. You've got to accept that there will be failure. And that for me was just a moment of I looked at him and went, "Shut up." Do you know what I mean? And this was at 3 a.m. in the morning as well. Don't try and give me some words of wisdom right now. But yeah, that for me is something that's always stuck. Massive.
Yeah. Interesting listening to you all, but especially you guys chat about the confidence kind of piece as well, and a bit of the imposter syndrome, and also Rachel, you chatting about the fact that you were worried about taking this opportunity on board, but that you find the confidence to kind of do it. Where do you think you get the confidence from? Ultimately, in a leadership role, you're going to push yourself outside your comfort zone. You have to do things that are new, hard, difficult. What is it in good leaders? Where do they get that from, do you think?
When I first started my first management role, I was really conscious of the fact that I didn't have very much confidence. So I read so much about confidence to try and understand what confidence actually was. And I kind of ended up landing on the fact that a lot of it was going to be about just doing it. And actually that feeling of not feeling confident is the point where actually you should be going, okay, well, my default reaction is to hide, but actually that's my trigger to go, okay, I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna try it. And what is the worst that can happen? I think also not taking yourself too seriously. I went to the wrong place this evening. I got lost. I know what Google is. I just forgot to use it. So I think just not taking yourself too seriously in these moments, accepting the fact that you are going to make a mistake, and just kind of owning it a little bit. I think that adds. And yeah, so that's my reflection on confidence. What do you think?
Do you know what? It's interesting. Anyone that knows me know that I use humour as a lot. Not because I'm any good at telling any jokes, but I genuinely use humour quite a lot in the workplace. I'm renowned for it, etc. Because I always find it as a relaxer for not just me, but for other individuals. Confidence is often only mistaken or only seen as, the loudest voice in the room, the person that's willing to stand up, etc. And there's different areas of what people are confident in and not. So confidence is one of those things, I think, about being confident in yourself and being willing, so as I said, you could have the best coder, the best data analyst that is not the best at public speaking, but they are confident in their knowledge, understanding, their ability, and that's, a great thing. I was really, when I was young, I didn't think I was lucky, but I was the youngest of six. And when you're the youngest of six, you've got to get your voice out or else nothing happens. You've got to make sure that you've made your place. You've got you sit in the seat you want to sit in, because I know, tell me about it. Because ultimately, you're almost competing with a bunch of individuals that are much more older than you and more grown up and stuff. So my sort of personal confidence was I got it by accident only because of a need. The little one in the family, always seen as the little one in the family, and therefore I had to have a voice, and that sort of carried on into my workspace and in my friendship space and the rest, and it's helped. But interestingly, because not all my siblings are the same, we've got quiet ones, we've got noisy ones. I'm not the noisiest, or am I? But there's different ones, and I think that's some of part of my leadership. Because I've grown up in quite a large family, I've seen and witnessed different strengths and weaknesses in my own siblings, and being able to tap into that, but also support when I need to and ask for support when I need to. And so confidence, I think, is not necessarily about outwardly confident, but having it always goes down to belief. I always say, and do you have the confidence in your ability? And be willing to.
I think emotional awareness plays into that, right? It's like you say, you don't have to be the person in the room spouting the words to come up to be confident. You're confident in your own ability, and if you're in a room of people where maybe you aren't the most knowledgeable, actually, I'm confident I'm going to sit back and I'm going to observe right now. Right? I'm going to learn and listen and take in all this information to make me a better person or make me better at what I can do. I might throw some nuggets out there, but I think it's something that people often view confidence as an external thing, how you present yourself, how you come across, your ability to stand up in front of people and talk or whatever that looks like. But there's so much more to that, and I think emotional awareness and I would say self-confidence, self-belief in your own ability is really what confidence comes through as.
What do you think, James?
No, I agree. I think, I think confidence ultimately is that self-belief piece, and you can have confidence in different situations, can't you? But it could be that I'm quite happy to stand up and have a conversation in front of people and lead something like that, but I might find it really difficult in a highly technical conversation that I know very little about. So, but I think a lot of it for me comes from a little bit like you said, Rachel, overcoming things time and time after again just gives you, it certainly, I believe it gives you more of a kind of self-confidence that you can go into almost any kind of situation and actually you will be okay. And you learn through failures, like you say. It's like, yeah, I failed numerous times, but I'm still here. I'm still alive. Nothing bad's really happened, so I'm actually okay. So I think a lot of that plays into it as well.
Yeah, not disasterizing. Always, what's the worst that can happen?
Yeah.
I love that. What's the worst that can happen? When I worked in banking, you know, I used to say, okay, even when things went wrong, you know, I remember we used to do shifts, not shifts, we was on call because of the role that I did, and you had a week on call. And I remember the worst week you can get is the where the week past the first of the month, because it was mortgage payment day and the rest. And obviously on an evening, what they do is all the journaling, and you've got a window that the journaling has to finish for the mortgage payments to, you know, and everything, or else people's mortgages default and the rest. And I remember getting a call from the techies that night, 3 o'clock in the morning, wake up, in the spare room for like an hour and a half, talking to them, you know, a bit half asleep and the rest. And everyone was just telling, it's a conference call, there's about 20 people, and everybody's going, oh, and this is going to go wrong, and if we do that, that's going to go wrong. And I just went, right, just stop. What's the worst that something can happen? Someone said, oh, 12,000 mortgages will be will default. And I went, yeah, but no one's going to die, are they? And, you know, and literally, you would not believe the tension just went, do you know what? You're right. We can sort of work through what the 12,000 delayed mortgage payments are going to be, but no one's so. And what it did was calmed everyone down and actually got some different logic thinking going, because all of a sudden panic stations disappeared. What is the worst that can happen? 12,000 mortgage payments. We'll speak to the press officer, and she'll be on Sky News the next morning to say there's been someone else's fault, you know. But
not that we have a blame for it.
You know, but you can do. What's the worst that can happen? And I think that's an interesting one, isn't it? Because actually, that small statement actually got the individuals that were much more brighter than me in the room to be confident in finding a solution.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I also like the one you talked about, Rachel, earlier as well, about just doing some action as well. You know, like I think there's often a thing of like overthinking things and overcomplicating things, and actually just doing some action will take you somewhere. Okay, it might end up being not the right path, but it will get you moving, get you away from the anxiety of things, and actually start you moving forward. And that builds a lot of confidence if you have a bias towards action.
Yeah, exactly. Holding back is probably the worst thing we can do in those situations. Just try something, and move forward. We've been talking for a while.
Have we?
We've been talking for a while. Yeah, it's been lovely. It's been really good, isn't it? Yeah. I want us to move on though, because thinking about the future. Yeah, we've talked a lot about the past, but I want us to talk about the future and think about what does the shape of leadership look like moving forward, and does it really change? Obviously, it's evolved. We talked about how things, maybe our mindsets have changed over the time. We've learned lessons, you know, we've had light bulb moments, etc. But in the world of tech, Cleveland's going to love me for using this 2-letter acronym called AI, right? But it is it's there, right? We've got to throw it out there. Does that change anything? Does the continued evolution of technologies and the landscape we work in change how we lead, what our future leaders need to resemble?
I'm really interested in your answer. Yeah.
So, I think that change is continuous, and that's awesome. Change is something we should be embracing. And actually, if I think about what I would be focusing on to be successful in the future as a leader, I would be focusing on things like, how do you think about change? And yeah, the change at the moment is AI. It's this interesting, exciting, potentially scary thing that's potentially going to change a lot of how we do things, but it's still change. So thinking about resilience, as in personal resilience, embracing change, managing change, seeing possibility, because a lot of people are very scared of AI. And frankly, I don't personally know what's going to happen, but I think our role as leaders is to really be thinking about what can we do and what opportunities there are, being conscious of that fear, managing people through change. That's where I land.
I like that. I think you're right. The change is constant, isn't it? And I always say the only thing that is constant is change. But it's really interesting. Yeah, totally. Yeah, taxes and death. You know, how many more of those?
Not going to
things
get too morbid. We're going to keep going.
out? But it's really interesting, isn't it? And we say, you know, what's the impact of AI? What's the future, etc. As I said, everybody knows now. I've been around a while, right? I've probably seen a more rapid evolution of change the last 3 years than I had for the previous 30 years in this industry. And does that acceleration, that evolution acceleration, continue to speed up? You know, does 3 weeks become 3 years, and 3 days become, you know? And the key thing for me is really about adaptability, right? It's interesting, you know. You've heard me mention a few different type of industries. You know, health tech's my baby, and I love it, and that's what I've been doing most of my time. Spent time in banking. Did I mention I work for Mercedes-Benz? You know, so yeah. And one of the things that I have learned over leadership, and I don't think this will ever change, is adaptability. So I'm always been a techie at heart, although, you know, most of the time now, and for a long time probably, I've been working, 33 years, for probably about 32 years, there's always people in the room that are much more intelligent than me in this industry. And the thing about it has always been for me, as I've gone through my career, gone through different companies, is being able to adapt. Ultimately being able to adapt, and whether that's adapting to a technology that's coming, you know, a new technology that's coming in, the elements of embracing what the opportunities you can get out of it, but also, you know, yeah, let's accept, you know, yes, you're going to be fearful, but actually, what is it going to do for you? What can you get out of the latest technology? The key thing that's never changing is people. You know, back to that old analogy, you know, you're still gonna have to wipe your ass. But you know, ultimately, well, I hope now that gets a bit weird.
Arse wiping intelligence.
There's a lot of things. There's a lot of things, but you know, ultimately, we as people are still going to be people. The things we do may be different. We may approach them differently, but ultimately, we're still going to have feelings. We're still going to have fears. We're still going to have hopes. We're still going to laugh. We're still going to cry. You know, all those things remain the same. So I think we've got to remember that you know, people put leaders on the echelon. We're still just human beings, and that's never going to change. Just our environment changes, and the future for leadership is being able to change your environment. I mean, I changed massively when, like most of us did, during COVID. You know, I've managed so many people over the years, right? But pretty much saw most of my team 4 or 5 days a week. Physical presence. You can see when someone's shoulders are down. You can see when someone's happy, you know, and all that sort of good stuff. COVID kicked in. You know, one of the things, anyone can look all right for 30 minutes on a Teams call. But, you know, how are they really feeling? When you can't physically see that, and you learn how you have to adapt your style, your approach, because the environment changes. And I can't see anything changing any different, whatever the technology, until they start teleporting us. You know, I can't see, the environment just changes. It brings lots of benefits, and you know, it's up for us to adapt and how we can use those. And look, you know, I've already started using Copilot or whatever to summarize, you know, my 20 million emails and all. And all of a sudden now I've got more information to my fingertips. But I think innately as humans, we're not going to change. Our environment changes, and it's up to us to be adaptable in order to make the best of it.
Yeah, I'd agree with adaptability being the primary skill, but it's not an easy one to come by, and it comes with experience, is what I mean by that. In a lot of cases, and you know, we've talked about leaders that have influenced us, and And I think that's our responsibility for the leaders of the future, right? How do we help them become adaptable? How do we help them understand this is what's needed?
Yeah, it's an interesting one as well. Listening to it, that obviously we live in the world of technology now, and so we've got so many more kind of interactions. You have so many digital interactions. Everybody wants everything right now. And like you say, talking about kind of adaptability, and how do you kind of gain those kind of skills that you need as from a human kind of centric people kind of leadership skill when you are a young person coming into leadership, when we're living in such a kind of digital kind of world?
Takes time. I think it's, for me, I've worked with a lot of grads recently over the last couple of years, and the ambition and everything is there. It's great. It's like, yes, yes, yes. And I remember being sat in a room. I mean, he's not here, but some people will know who I'm going to talk. Jamie. You know Jamie? Yeah, you know Jamie. Joined the grad scheme when I was working at Dunelm, and he did a rotation in the quality space, in the software testing space. And I remember him sitting in a room with me 2 weeks into his grad scheme going, how do I get to your role? I was like, I love that ambition. Now let's have a proper conversation. Because it's not about titles. It's there's so much more to that, and you've got to gain some scars. You've got to gain some learnings throughout, and I think that's where being adaptable and that kind of thing comes in, because if you don't have that experience, you don't know how you react in a certain situation and how to adapt to a certain situation. So whilst you can teach some of it for me is just let nature take its course almost.
I think it's interesting that, look at young aspiring leaders, especially, young individuals, this whole environment of gratification, of likes and, and wanting to present the best picture of yourself. It's like dusting up a picture to make it look great. And you meet the person in person, you think, is that you? But that was a professionally done. Oh, yeah, there you go.
There's a likeness.
Thanks. But you know what? This it's interesting, and I do take the P about my role. I have actually always said I don't care what my title is. It's never really mattered to me. But actually, for a lot of young aspiring leaders, it's all about I want to get to, I want to be whatever I want to be, right? But I also the frightening thing is, we all seen those. And I'm going to ask everybody an interesting question here, right? But we all see those successful entrepreneurs. I made a billionaire when I was 23, and I started in my shed, and they can do it, and everyone can do it. But it's really, really interesting when you look at all that, and you talk about, what is the thing for aspiring leaders, and etc. One of the big questions I think people need to ask themselves: what is success? And what is success? And interestingly, I think I'm hoping we've just gone out of the phase where success was bling, was money, was whatever you could was very showy. But actually, people are realizing that success is not about those things. For me, success is being happy, and I'd rather be poor and extremely happy than very well off and lonely and bored. That so when you talk about when we talk that, and any young leader or young aspiring leader, surround yourself with network is what I would say. Meet people, different people, diversity of voice as well as everything else, and really try and learn and hear from different people and different experiences. There is this thing about having some scars. You actually don't want to become a director after 2 years experience, because you haven't really you can call yourself whatever you want, I mean, especially on LinkedIn, you can put whatever job title you want, can't you? If that makes you happy. But there is something about some patience. There's something about really learning from others as well that will make you that better person, whatever you want to be. time is the best, is completely the best lesson.
I agree.
Anyway, I've waffled on.
No, I think that makes sense. That's really interesting. So I think experience compounds. So you were talking about how actually maybe 2 years into a job from starting getting to be a director is possibly not the best thing. And I get lots of conversations with people in my team about, like, how do I get there as quickly as possible? But actually the experience of how do you manage or lead a team through a scenario where you're not the person that's accountable for it, having the battle scars and having experienced that is really useful, so that when inevitably you are in the situation where something's happening and you need to draw on that experience, you have something to draw on. And yeah, so I think that really resonates with me. That's really interesting.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, I'm sure we've all got scars.
And I think we learn from them, don't we? That's good.
I'll show you mine if you show me yours. Yeah, exactly that. And I think it's kind of coming back to what we were saying earlier about there's not really anything. There's no such thing as failure. It's just lessons learned, and they're the scars, right? We learn from these things. You learn from your successes. You learn from your failures. And I think that's what to become a confident leader and stuff like that. You can have self-confidence, but to become confident as a leader, you need that experience, I think.
When I was a primary school teacher, because I was a primary school teacher in the past.
Can we have a round of applause for that?
One of the phrases that we used to use when it came to learning was be a magpie. Go out and pick, go out and learn, go out and take the best of all the things that you can experience and see, and not necessarily hoard them like a magpie, but just that's always stuck with me, because I think it's the most amazing privilege when somebody is brave enough and also asks you to have a conversation, a coffee, wants to have a chat about anything that you might know something about. I'm always in awe of these people. But I genuinely believe that if people want to learn and want to grow in their careers, that is the superpower. Whether it's messaging somebody on Zoom and going, "Hi, can we have a chat? I like what you were doing there and I really want to learn," or, "Do you have 15 minutes? That's amazing. And doing that has been one of the ways that I have learned the most in my career, because the people that have got the jobs that you want, hopefully have got there with skills that you want to learn. And so going and asking them how, why, and what did they do, most people are really open to that.
You say it's a privilege to have people come and ask you, right? That's just like,
And not that many people ask, I don't think, as well.
True.
Yeah. That's when you get back into coaching mode, isn't it?
Yeah, well, yeah.
What do you?
Yeah, exactly.
And on that note, we're going to have to wrap this up. But before we do, I want to hand over to the audience and see if there's any questions from the audience.
Is the mic working now?
Is the mic working now? Yeah. Adrian, this is your. You've blown it. I know the mic's at the back of the room already. If we have any questions from the audience, please raise your hand, and our lovely assistant Adrian will bring the mic to you.
Got one out here.
We might not.
What was the program that used to describe people's clothes? It's Question Time, isn't it? The guy with the beautiful hoodie on, just down there.
Do you know how it works?
If we haven't got a mic, we can just go for it. Yeah.
Just shout. It's fine.
So, AI is obviously one thing that's changing leadership.
Yeah.
We've had a nice positive kind of direction to the conversation and telling of history. But do you think we're on a turning point at the moment? It feels like we've been on a positive cultural change for quite a couple of decades at least. That's not necessarily continuing. I think maybe now is quite a hard time to be a leader, and particularly if you believe in safety.
Such a good question.
Yeah, it's a really good question. I've certainly seen, just to frame that a little bit as well, from a kind of seen in the marketplace with everyone being brought back into offices and like a little bit of a change of like, trusting everybody to do their jobs to actually then kind of really having a bit more oversight in there. I don't know, how have you guys seen this?
I'm really, really concerned about some of the rhetoric around DE&I in particular. And I am very, very, very passionate about actually as leaders, yes, it is tough right now. But just because it's tough, I think that we need to be vocal, open about what, like what we believe in, to stand up for those things that have been hard won. I am definitely here and in my job because I have the privilege that other people have enabled, and those people didn't necessarily get the same opportunity that I have. So I'm so passionate about opening the door and keeping it open for others. And actually, that is the reason why I am on LinkedIn, because I honestly believe that it is a way to hopefully try and share some of that. Because if we don't take care of it and look after it and preserve it, it will go. And yeah, I'm personally very concerned, but I'm trying to use that as an opportunity to step up, be a bit more positively vocal. So it's an awesome question. Thank you for asking it.
Wow. And I hope we didn't get too deep today, because, yeah, it's the external environment that we're now operating in is awful. It really is. You might not have noticed, but I'm a young black man. And look, brought up in Leeds, grew up as a kid in the 70s, and you experience in particular verbal abuse and the rest of it. And I can hand on to heart say over the years that has diminished to pretty much never and the rest. And I'm now fearful for my children and because all of a sudden, so my hope is that it is the vocal minority that are, but actually it just reminds me that a lot of the rhetoric is only built on what was already there, but just quieter. And then now there seems to be a platform which AI and tech is accelerating and allowing those messages to get around. The craziest thing is what they're doing at the moment with this rhetoric is nothing new. It's exactly what happened in the 30s. You find something to blame for those that are not necessarily, and not everyone's having a great life. And you want to find an excuse of why that is, not really facing into the reason why you are in a particular position. And you have to take, crazily, this is a reverse mental point, but you have to take your hat off to the individuals that are leading that rhetoric right now and the way they are tapping into people's vulnerabilities in order to present a message which is now becoming common conversation. I've had some stupid conversations with individuals. What is the old thing again? Terry, she used to say a couple of statements, that anything after the but or however is bullshit. And, when someone comes and talks to you, in Greg's getting me £2 bacon sandwich, and this guy comes up to me and goes, I'm not a racist, but do you know what? Let's not have a conversation, because the moment that you had to say anything after the but is absolute shite. So it's a really scary moment right now. It is accelerated by this amazing technology that we talk about in the sweetness and light space. And we've got to be openly conscious. I hope that everybody and every one of us, have got it in ourselves to understand that what people are really about, and that over time we do break down this vocal minority of idiots and get through it. I'm not sure if we will, but might get worse before it gets better. There you go. We got deep, and I said we weren't. I said we weren't going deep.
It's a good question, though.
That was a great question, though.
That was a great question.
Any other questions from the audience? Yeah, the back.
Yeah. So I know you talked about obviously having great leaders that have sort of helped you get to where you are today, but have you had like coaches and mentors that have helped you potentially in areas that you needed to develop in, or areas where people have given you feedback where you needed to, said, you need to work on this a little bit? What's your stance on that?
Yes, definitely. I've had mentors who have told me things that at the time I did not want to know, but actually the fact that they did was absolutely amazing. Huge respect for those people. Yeah, I mean, I think it's so, so important to surround yourself with people who challenge you, who support you, who encourage you to grow. Call them mentors, call them friends, call them peers, perhaps. I mean, I think I used to really not embrace the fact that I had these people that might be the sort of same level of accountability in an organization, but in the last couple of years, I've really tried to build my relationships with those people. And now that I'm leaving the organization that I am, I'm walking away with a good group of friends, which is really amazing. And so I think that's something that I would say is important, having that community.
Absolutely. I mean, mentors are unbelievable. I think what's really interesting for me when I talk about mentors, I sometimes what people call reverse mentors. So interesting that individuals that are being led by someone else giving you advice of things that you probably won't see. So it's all right having a bunch of individuals. It's all right a bunch of leaders sat in a room and all saying how great they are or all the things that they're learning. But actually, you want to hear it from different. You want, I say it all the time, and I read a book about it. It's about diversity of voice. You want different perspectives to help guide you and support you and to tell you things. And you're not always self-aware, not because you're not a self-aware individual, but sometimes it's very difficult. I also think whether it's mentors or otherwise or coaches, etc. As you go into leadership, it can be quite lonely. People wanting you, looking at you to inspire, to answer, and all the rest of it. And sometimes you go, "Where's my sounding board?" Mrs. H doesn't want to hear from me all the time. It's like I'm talking to her about things at work, and I can just see the glaze over. It's like, Christ, here he goes again. But actually, and in particular, I always recommend anyone who's getting into management and leadership, have someone that you can talk to independently that are not connected to your workplace, etc. Because you sometimes need a sounding board. Interestingly, it's like when you have a coach, they don't hugely tell you things, but they allow you to say the things that you're thinking to then go, oh yeah, I get. So, I think, mentors, supporters, reverse mentor, which I have found most valuable as I've got more senior, and also people from different specialisms. So whatever your specialism is, you know that really, really well. But actually, it's really important. I've always found to have people that have completely different professional skills that bring in a totally different concept and different perspectives. Because it's quite easy to get lost in your lane of stuff. So there you go. Hope that answered your question.
Excellent.
Right, listen.
It's less of a question, more of an observation, really. First of all, I think what you've done tonight has been really fascinating. To kind of bring this air of humility into a sector that, from my experience, can be quite arrogant. It's interesting listening to you, Rachel. I work with somebody in the NHS who's managing director of £1 million budget, and she's been in the NHS for 40 years and has 50 LinkedIn contacts, which tells me she lived in a bubble. I really related to you, Cleveland, when you were talking about, at the end of the day, what leaders are dealing with is many, many sections of 5 inches between the ears. And that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with people's emotions and people. And very few technology companies or technology organisations, from my perspective, bear this kind of debate. It's so healthy to hear this because I think AI could be really dangerous because as technologists sort of lead our innovation, like the emperor's new clothes, it's wonderful, it's wonderful, it's wonderful. But actually, unless you get the people stuff right. So thank you very much for doing it, and thank you for letting me be involved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very nice. But just to add on what you said, you know what? It's quite hard out there, some people in organisations. You depending on an organisation's status position, they can be under quite a lot of pressure, whether it's financial pressures, whether it's, survival, etc. And it's like we were saying earlier, isn't it? You really see strong leaders in the most difficult times, not necessarily the sweetest times. And those pressures are sometimes quite oppressive, really, really difficult to deal with. Interesting, and it is with everybody, and it's no different for a leader. But the hardest bit is if something that threatens your existence, it threatens your income, your whatever, is the bit that makes it the most, where you almost fight or flight, isn't it?
Yeah.
So as much as I think innately, I genuinely think that most people are genuinely nice people, but their environment changes them. The pressures changing them. And, we talked about the challenges that we got at the moment and the blames and all the rest of it. It's the environment that those individuals are that is creating this. Who is to blame and what's the reason? I genuinely believe in the human race. Maybe I'm a bit foolish, but I really, really do.
Do you know what? I think that's a great way to wrap it up.
Yeah.
I don't think we can wrap it up on any better thing. I just want to say a massive thank you to you both for joining. You've both been amazing guests. This has been a brilliant conversation. Thank you, James, for co-hosting this. Thank you to everybody for joining.
Yeah.
Hope you've enjoyed it. Tell your friends, tell your families, tell your peers, whatever you like. I mean, the TV's even gone off. So clearly we've overstayed our welcome.
Yeah.
But no, thank you to everybody. Made this event so good. So good. Yeah. I really appreciate it.
Great. Yeah, thanks, guys.
I've got to close off this because obviously this is going out on YouTube. Not live, but it will do. So normally what I do is join us next time on another episode of Quality Talks podcast. Good night.